G'day everybody and welcome to your favourite Shed Gospel. It's Nigel Woolley and it's lovely to join with you today and to share some things and talk about Australia, talk about some realities, of course, and things that we're learning and finding. But, excuse me, I've just had a bit of a little bit of a head cold in the last couple of days, so just struggling to get over that, but all is well. And in terms of what I've titled the video, The Crown in Right of the People, when you go and have a look at Queen Victoria's letters patents and her instructions to the governors she wrote them on the 29th of October 1900. She wrote some specific letters to the Governor-General and also to the people, and she wrote letters also to the governors and appointing those, and everything was going to be in place for the establishment of the Commonwealth. And you can find those on Trove, and certainly you can find the New South Wales Government Gazette on the 1st of January 1901 published these letters patents and instructions to the governor and all that. But there's a little clause there in the commission to the governor. It's quite interesting. There's a little clause there that says that we command everybody to obey the governor and his subordinates. But giving a commission to the governor and giving the commandment for the people says our loving subjects in New South Wales, in the state of New South Wales, and it uses those words, our loving subjects. And I thought that was very well written, and the command there was to obey the governor in all things that he gets us to do. And when you go back and read the text of these things, it's quite refreshing, and it gives you a great context for our pieces of law, you know. And certainly Queen Victoria's attitude towards us. She never came out here, unfortunately. But, you know, it seems very kindly dispositioned towards the people. And certainly when you read the preamble of the Commonwealth Constitution, and her letters around the establishment of the Commonwealth, and that it was very well set out towards the people. And that she was kindly dispositioned towards us, as I've said. But that sort of brings into context the question of power. And obviously she was the reigning monarch at the time, and crown powers were given to the Parliament to make laws, and also to the judges to adjudicate the law, and also for the police and stuff. But the crown in right, and you read some of those things in certainly the acts I've read in the Victorian Parliament Acts. They say this act applies the crown in right of Victoria, or the crown in right of New South Wales, and this act binds the crown in all of its capacities. And you read these things, and you think, what on earth does this mean? But in the sense of crown powers, it's the way that we assemble ourselves under the crown, under the lawful crown, and assembling ourselves lawfully, that makes anything have any powers whatsoever. If it's not a lawful assembly, there's going to be no lawful proceedings that happen in that assembly. And the same thing, you know, if we're not lawfully constituted, then there's going to be no laws that come from our parliaments that are lawful. As much as we think they're lawful, they're not. And they can't be, because the Parliament's not lawfully constituted, you know. So, but in applying the Crown powers to things, Wayne Glue put it very well this way, and he said it's the crown in right of the people, but it's not the crown in right of the institution. And that's true, isn't it? That's the crown in right, and that's what makes you feel safe, and that fits perfectly with what Queen Victoria said in her letters patents, was that essentially we're setting out all of this framework for the people's sake, for taking care of the people. We need to set up the laws, we need to set up these institutions, and these institutions will have these functions,
and the people need to obey them in what they're saying. But essentially, it's people-centric. The moment we lose the people-centric nature of the Constitution, the people-centric nature of the fact that the Commonwealth Constitution was written by the people, for the people, and the people show their powers and use their powers in a constitutional way in voting, in changing the Constitution, and whatever. It's very, we're mentioned in there. It's people-centric. It's a social contract, for lack of better words, between us and the UK Parliament that enacted that, and the monarch. And so we have a federal parliament and state parliaments acting, as it were, in subordinate capacity to their governing, or that which is above them, which is the UK Parliament and the Queen. But they're there for our sake, on our behalf, and on their behalf, in sort of a delegated position, in a sort of a doing it in trust kind of a role. But the moment that I think the doctrine of parliamentary sovereignty is so damaging, because, okay, they somewhat have a sovereign role in the sense that they're the only place able to make lawful laws for us. So that they're a place of origin, in the sense that that's a sovereign place of origin. We don't get two places in our state or in our Commonwealth that make laws, in a sense. We don't have two Commonwealth parliaments. We have one. We have one state parliament in each state. That's sovereign by the sense it's one place where these laws come from. But the moment that the acts of Parliament take a turn towards being power-centric rather than people-centric, that's an abuse. And this has been happening for a long time. And the High Court and some of the Supreme Courts have sometimes erred in this way as well. And I think it was Justice Michael Kirby, one of those justices, I think it was him, that he said that, it might not be him, but it was someone I was reading anyway, in the High Court decision. He said that it's been hardly explored, the fact that the people wrote the Constitution, and that's the will of the people. It's the enumerated will of the people. But it is a fundamental way to view the Constitution. That's the only way to view it, because it is that. It is law. It's a piece of law. It's a fundamental law of this country. All things hang off it now. Supposed to. But it's the will of the people, and that is the number one way to view it. And so therefore, if you have crown powers, it has to be the crown in right of the people. It's these crown powers that are for the people, that are there to protect the people, that are there to make laws for the people, on behalf of the people, to put the will of the people into legislation that's going to take care of the people. But that's the only way that crown powers are supposed to be working. They're not supposed to give Parliament a sort of an above us position where they're dictating and using those crown powers as a dictatorial sign, like a sign off for dictatorial laws. No, it's the crown in right of the people. And I think that's what's missing in these pieces of legislation, where they say this, this act binds the crown in right of New South Wales or something, and you might see that in the start of an act. But it's New South Wales as in the people of New South Wales, but they omit that. They omit that important truth. Excuse me. So, New South Wales, when you go back and read the Commonwealth Constitution, doesn't it say that the people that reside in the colonies of New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, whatever, and they've all agreed that they want to have this Commonwealth Constitution, it sets out that it's the people. It's not even geographic, like, you're not saying like that the land wanted to have this Commonwealth Constitution. It's not that the colonies got together and wanted to have this Commonwealth. It was the people that got together and wanted this Commonwealth. So all things have to be viewed as people-centric. That's the only way to view it. And so states, if the colonies wanted to come into this new federal polity, as we call it, or as the High Court's called it, a federal polity, a federal community of people called the Commonwealth of Australia, there had to be provisions for them to continue. So they were able to turn from colonies into states, but on the proviso that they abided by the Commonwealth Constitution to do so. You know, if they've broken the deal, or if they're not the same state as what they once were in law as what they were at the Federation, then the deal is off, isn't it? You know, we're the other half of the deal. We're the people of the Commonwealth. We were the ones that wanted this Commonwealth of Australia. So it's on our terms what the Commonwealth of Australia is. It's not on their terms. They're always going to try and prove powers that they have. They're going to try and prove that they're always existing regardless. You know, it's like a perpetual power. That's the way that these states think about themselves, the state parliaments. They think that they're perpetual. They can just disobey the Commonwealth Constitution in whatever way they want, rewrite their own constitution, all that stuff. You know, that they've got this perpetual concept that just because they bear the name New South Wales or Victoria, that's where the power resides, and that the people that live in these states must have a parliament, and so therefore, and they must have a constitution, so therefore they prove in the positive that their constitution must therefore be valid, and that their parliaments must therefore be valid. No, that's not true. Excuse me. And as I said, it's the people that wanted this Commonwealth of Australia, this indissoluble federal Commonwealth. And at any time, if the parliaments are betraying the people, or if the laws are betraying the people, then they're unlawful in and by design. And so applying Crown powers to an unlawful law so that you have to obey it is unlawful, if you know what I mean. It's unprincipled. You know, I read somewhere a while ago, and as I said, back to these letters patents from Queen Victoria that told the people to obey the governors of the states in whatever capacities they are making laws and things, which is fine. But I read somewhere that they wanted to remove the letters patents for these governors. And I don't know who originated that or what the deal was with that. But if they have removed the letters patents for the governor, in as far as what Queen Victoria was telling the people, and with the commission that she gave to the governors, I don't know what they've done with those. But if they've decided to remove those and haven't told us, then therefore we also don't have to obey the state parliament that's done so, because there's no basis in law anymore for us having to obey them. You know, because if they've gotten rid of the commission that Queen Victoria told the people to obey the governor, if they've gotten rid of the letters patents regarding the governors and also the commission, then therefore the states have got no basis in law anymore to make laws for us that will apply to us. And especially when you start looking at the fact they've replaced their constitutions, that's a fundamental breaking of the deal. And because we're the other party in the contract, you know, it was our deal that we made up called the Commonwealth Constitution, you know. It was our deal. And the state parliaments were allowed to continue for our sake, because it's a large geographic area where we reside, and it's better to have a local parliament that can deal with the matters that are in this state, you know. So that's how the states were allowed to continue, but they were under Section 106 of the Commonwealth Constitution. It says that state parliaments, state constitutions shall continue subject to this constitution as at the establishment of the Commonwealth. So there's two things. It's a double-edged sword, that one. So it's allowing the states' parliaments to continue, allowing the states' constitutions to continue. So if anyone ever doubted whether the state constitutions were valid in the Federation, it is valid. The states' parliament, the states' constitutions are valid in the Federation, as at the establishment of the Commonwealth, though. The ones that they had at the establishment of the Commonwealth. But therein is the double-edged sword, because the states are also bound under Section 106 to keep those constitutions that they had in the Federation. that brought them in. So to replace them is a breaking of the contract. It's a breaking of the deal, you know. Imagine if you're in contract with someone with millions of dollars at stake, and they rewrote the contract, even if they just copied all the clauses and rebadged it as something else and said, well, it's essentially the same. All the clauses are still there that we originally agreed on, but, you know, it's a new contract. You would say the deal is off. You would have this person that did that or company that did that to you in court. You would drag them over the coals for changing the contract mid-job, wouldn't you? You know, you would throw the book at them. The same thing has happened with our state parliaments. They've changed the contract. They've changed the state constitution that they were told to keep as at federation. You know, the other thing too is that the state constitutions that we had at federation were acts of the British Parliament, acts of the UK Parliament, with changes that the UK Parliament had made to those. And the Commonwealth Constitution Act is an act of the UK Parliament. So all constitutions alive in Australia at Federation, all constitutions in force at Federation, were all acts of the UK Parliament. They all mesh on the same level of power because they're all acts of the UK Parliament. But what happens when a state changes their constitution? They write their own and they enact their own, using their powers to write laws, but they create their own constitution, and then that when they enact that constitution, then that constitution is defining their parliament. So automatically, the moment that constitution is assented to, it's automatically refounded the parliament. That's what it does. So the parliament is suddenly constituted on the new constitution. And because that's so, then that parliament is not in the federation. The state as defined in that new constitution is not in the federation. It's a legal entity, but it's not in the federation because it's like a new contract made after the deal. So how on earth do they keep having powers to make laws for the people of the Commonwealth that reside in the area of the state with a brand new deal? Doesn't work. You know, we didn't agree to it. We didn't have a referendum. We didn't accept it. We weren't even offered the opportunity to speak up. It wasn't even presented to us. It wasn't even advertised. It just happened. And the moment that we begin to let this sink in and realise how deeply we've been betrayed from even our own state parliaments, and the word should get out there. You should be sharing this information because it's easy to check. If your state constitution's made after federation, they've broken the deal. You didn't agree to it. You weren't offered. And you're no longer in social contract with them. And so how on earth can they claim crown powers to make laws for you? You know, it's an abuse, isn't it? It's like trying to claim the Queen signing off their powers. And I don't know if the Queen knows that they're sitting unlawfully. And the Queen might assume that they're still sitting on the same constitutions that they had as at Federation. From their end, they might be thinking so. And so in that context, you can see that the Australia Act that they passed in 1986 was allowing those state parliaments to sort of have their powers reinforced, and also to give us a bit more. It sort of looked like it was giving Australia a bit more freedom to be its own thing. But the reality is unlawful parliaments that were unlawfully constituted, that were representing the states that the UK Parliament thought they had at Federation, but they jumped on this Australia Act and then claiming the powers of Australia Act apply to them. It's automatically made the Australia Act null and void by the fact they were involving unlawful parliaments on the discussions. It's invalid ab initio, you know, because it involves a fraud and a treason of these treasonous parliaments. So how on earth can you have a UK Parliament signing off on treasonous parliaments in Australia to keep making disastrous laws for the people of the Commonwealth that reside here? I bet they don't even know. Or if they do know, They may not have the power to do anything, But this is the reality of it. And so if you've got, the crown in right of the people, that is the way to view it, that you're there to say, long live the Queen, God save the Queen. That's your relationship. God save the Queen, right? So the people want God to look after the Queen because the Queen is there to look after us. That's the social contract. And our Parliament is supposed to be operating like in proxy from her to make laws for our welfare on her behalf because she's not here, and they're supposed to be doing a good job for us on her behalf. Excuse me. But they're not. They've thought in their hearts to try and steal Australia, steal the Commonwealth, and to use our buy-in, use the powers of the Commonwealth Constitution against us, That's what they've tried to do. And it's treason, it's acts of bastardry, it's all sorts of things, misprision of treason, treachery. Treachery is a betrayal of trust. That's treachery. And, the true word bastards is right. These people are the bastards. These ones are like the redcoats, back in the old days that were sitting there using their positions of power and immunity to beat the people, Australia is not just made of convicts. Australia is made of free settlers too. So, the free settlers need to have a lawful recourse and a reason to want to live here, and like a value proposition type thing, What can we provide the free settlers that want to move to this country and build our economy and live peaceably here is that we can provide them sanctuary, we can provide them a context where they're being looked after by the Queen, and in exchange for taxes, of course, then you're getting all these other benefits in a free and open society, But when they're using these crown powers to their own ends and stuff, this is exactly what's been happening. But it's the crown in right of the people. It's not the crown in right of the powers that be, okay? Or it's not the crown in right of the legislation. Or the crown in right of domination. It's the crown in right of the people. You're weak. They are strong, and so crown powers need to be very careful with the way that they deal with you, You're like this little precious gem to be looked after. But that's not how they view it, because we've got these traitors and robbers. What the Bible said, Jesus said, the thief comes to steal, to kill and to destroy. Have we had these guys trying to steal and kill and destroy in our country? Certainly try and kill the truth, haven't they? Destroy our nation, destroy our sovereignty, destroy all sorts of things and use our buy-in to do it. But Jesus said, I've come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. And so the truth will set us free. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. But that's the thing, is that we are to be protected by those crown powers. They're not a sign-off on debauchery or lawlessness, as has been happening. So God bless you, friends, and I just wanted to leave that with you, and hopefully it's an encouragement with you that it's the crown in right of the people, okay? It's not the crown in right of the establishment or the crown in right of using authoritarian regimes on the people. No, that's not what it's for. It's the crown in right of the people, to take care of the people, to look after the people and to treat them well. That's the only way to view it, It's the only way to view crown powers. So, God bless you, friends. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.